big welcome to you as we move into Experience 30 of Series 3 in the program Living Purposefully into Your Very Own Story. And again, this is one aspect of how our interweaving stories can rub shoulders with mystery as we're invited to grow into inner freeing and harmony. So Experience 30 does three things. It concludes Series 3. It's a brief review of experiences 11 to 20. And it names 4 inner silences that nurture new energies that have come to birth. We've been present to these silences as we've done 1 to 29 in the videos, and we didn't name them as we're going to name them here. But you've been invited to be present and to take the opportunity to be in these 4 different kinds of silences. So here we have our metaphors to describe what happens when we live into an epic journeying cycle. At the biggest level, an epic journeying cycle helps us to come to our true selves. And quite often, epic journeying cycles begin with a sense of discomfort. And within that sense of discomfort, there's buried a call to move into new patterns, a call onwards. And this stepping out of an old pattern has fear, especially at the beginning, which decreases as we move on, and we come to the gold at the end. And that gold is a sense within us of feeling freer and of being in harmony and balance. And so this particular experience is about naming the gold. And here's a summary. And you'll notice that there's a different opening lily with gold in the centre. And this is a summary of what an epic journeying cycle will bring about in our inner being. Through epic journeying cycles, the more than energy and the mystery of life invites us to move beyond where we are right now in our skin. And the real gift is we are empowered to embrace the rewards of experiencing more inner freeing and harmony. Here is an image. I'm leaving it with you for a brief while to let it speak what it wants to speak to you about your life and living. As usual, I've chosen a poem from Noel Davis, who talks about this silence, which is the real theme of this particular experience. And this is Noel speaking for himself about the experience of quiet that he's had. So the I, as I begin, is Noel himself. And listen to the power of how he wants to say it. I need to tell the world 1,000 times over about the gift of silence, the intimacy of the inner quiet, how it has been my healer, bringing me home to myself from someplace else, awakening my seeing, helping me relate my doing with being, opening me up to be gifted by others, moving me each day to express my gratitude, drawing me ever closer to the heart of all, into the sanctuary of now. I'm pausing for a little while for you to quietly say those words to yourself. maybe a phrase there really resonates with you. And maybe a phrase or phrases inform the metaphor of the image for you. And so there's a brief time of quiet, and then I'm going to read the poem again, inviting you to sub-vocalise it as I'm reading it the second time. A 1,000 times over. I need to tell the world 1,000 times over about the gift of silence, the intimacy of the inner quiet, how it has been my healer, bringing me home to myself from someplace else, awakening my seeing, helping me to relate my doing with being, opening me up to be gifted by others, moving me each day to express my gratitude, drawing me ever closer to the heart of all, into the sanctuary of now. And again, having read that poem, where the harvest of epic journeying cycles is so beautifully expressed by Noel Davis, I'm letting this image be with you for a short while. So the first silence I'm going to name, and we've done it in the other preceding experiences, is naked. And I'm calling the title for this silence, An Experience of Being Naked in the Presence of More Than Energy or Mystery. That really means that we hand over control by listening to these inner invitations that come. And when the inner invitation comes and we're feeling discomfort, we haven't got any control about knowing what's going to come at the end. We haven't got any idea of what the harvest will be, but we have a sense that the harvest will be. Thomas Merton has something to say about this kind of silence, the silence of being open to the more than in our life and allowing that dialogue, which we've had in summary all the way through, between how we are and how we're cared for by the mystery and life. Merton says, in silence we face and admit the gap between the depths of our being, which we constantly ignore, and the surface, which is untrue to our own reality. And that's what the invitation to new patterns is about. Not throwing out all the old pattern, but leaving behind that part of the old pattern which has gone into overdrive. Again, I'm leaving you a brief time with this image to be present to how the silence of being open to the invitations of mystery, the more than the us energy, is for you. So a second silence is about holding to our own conviction against outside pressure. This means we're silent to other things, that we're true to what we know. And I'm calling this silence hanging on in there when we have inner knowing present in our awareness. Again, Merton has something to say about this kind of conviction and being able to hold our own when we have inner knowing. Living in a silence which so reconciles the contradictions within us that, although they remain within us, they cease to be a problem. Now, isn't that just another way of saying what we've been experiencing from videos 1 to 29? That we have old patterns, they're part of the old patterns which are a gift for us. However, in time they go into overdrive, and then if we answer the inner invitations, which often start with a sense of discomfort, the overdrive comes into balance, and so the overdrive is not a problem. I'm leaving you again a little time to be with this image, to let the silence of inner knowing that you've respected emerge for you. This one doesn't look like silence, but it is. I've called the title Feel at Odds with the More Than Energy or Mystery of Life and express this. So an invitation comes to you or the sense of discomfort is there and you're up to screaming point. Now, there has to be an inner silence for us to be present to what our feelings are and to allow them to come to expression. And yet once more, Thomas Merton has some wise advice. All of us need enough silence and solitude in our lives to enable the deep inner voice of our own true self to be heard at least occasionally. And haven't we had lots of practice at that as we worked through experiences 1 to 29? And again, I'm leaving you a little time to be present to how, over being present to these videos, you've learned to allow your feelings to have silence and come to expression, enough silence to come to expression in the midst of the unending pattering of everyday life in our minds. And the last kind of silence is to come to know that more than us energy and mystery of life have ideas which are better for us than we could ever dream of. And I've called this silence the silence in which we can listen to the invitations from more than us energy and mystery that surrounds us, in the midst of listening to our tingles and clangs and niggles and nudges and other ways that we are invited to leave older patterns behind and embrace newer patterns that are bringing us to our true selves. And also this time, Merton puts his finger on the pulse. Silence teaches us to know reality by respecting it where words have defiled it. And particularly in this third series, Experiences 21 to 29, we've broadened where the wisdom that is within us can come into our awareness through doing experiences which allow emotional and intelligence to have a say. So, we've been working through this in different ways I'm putting together a practice sequence that nurtures inner growth, whether you're in or thinking of it as an epic journeying cycle or silences or any other system. This sequence will help you become your better self. Live your life spontaneously in each now moment. Pause regularly and often. In this program, we've had several pauses during each video, and you've been encouraged and invited to take the opportunity to integrate pausing at the beginning and at the end of each day, at least. And so in the pauses, the third step is to notice your energy movements and the invitations that come from how you are within you in your skin. And after noticing, receive what is there, especially the unexpected. You might remember in a story in Series 1 that I told about how a story that I'd been telling when I had said it for the 6th time, thinking it was fun, the phrase that emerged within me was, "You can't afford to be stressed." That was so unexpected. In that story, as I told it, I was present to what the message was, allowing it to be as it was. And then when I allowed it to be what it was, I sorted out the invitations within it. The invitation for me was to do a reality check. Where was the pull down and the pull back energy? And the pull down energy was that I had too much on, that I needed to lessen the stress. And the last step is to choose as an alternative to being driven. And in that story, I did choose to drop one subject, which reduced the stress that I was under. Now, epic journeying cycles, looking at them from a more distant view, they are multiple, recurring. There can be several in process at once at different stages, and they can range from very short to long. For me personally, the shortest one that I've taken note of has been 5 minutes, and the longest one that I've taken note of is 61 years. Maybe there are longer ones, but I haven't seen the beginning and the end yet. So now, I'm putting together the new information in Experience 30 with the epic journeying cycles. And the 4 silences I'm naming as the harvest. And this is the harvest of moving into and being a part of an epic journeying cycle, or allowing the epic journeying cycle to be named in our consciousness. So the first silence was naked. And the harvest of it is that out of our life of living, we experience discomfort. Out of that discomfort, there comes an invitation to expand our perception of reality. Paralleled by an epic journeying cycle, first and second step, discomfort moving us to set out on a new pattern. The second silence, which is withstanding outside pressure and going with how it is in us alone, at the edge, just us and the vast unknown, parallels to we will experience struggles. There will be push-pull, there'll be old patterns holding us back, there'll be external things that cause us to have a sense of great struggle, which decreases as a new pattern starts emerging. The third silence, in touch with an expression of feelings. If we're not present to when we're struggling, it will deepen and take us to other mental stresses, deepen the stresses. So we need to name that we are struggling, and as we're naming that we're struggling, we will embrace inner and outer help. And so those two silences together are another way of looking at the harvest of epic journeying cycles. They are the harvest of steps 3 and 4 of an epic journeying cycle. 3 struggles, 4 help along the way. And our last silence, awareness of the bigger picture. So when we do invoke our observer self and step back and integrate what's happening within us and the 3 silences previously, and put that with what the mystery of life knows and is inviting us to move to, we will find that our perceived and actual realities integrate through inner and outer help. And that's to come to inner harmony. So that's the harvest, and it fits 5 and 6 of the epic journeying cycle, as I've named it. That we will let go older patterns and values, etc., and something new comes to birth. And what comes to birth in that new way is the harvest. So, what happens in you as you embrace the harvest of epic journeying cycles, the multiple ones in your life? Some beginning, some in the middle, some ending, some completed. Well, if you become your observer self and step back and have a look at them, you will find that there has been a continuous expansion of your vision of what is possible for you. And I am sure if you followed through, especially the experiences 21 to 29, that you will find that you stretched your awareness of your inner sanctuary of soul. Another harvest, which most of us want, is seeing more clearly and deeply. And one which doesn't actually fit Western culture so well. I mean, it's an expansion of what is already in our cultural gift to us. Listening to and honouring your intuition. For some of us, we hardly knew that our intuition was operating. So what a harvest in doing these experiences to find that your intuition is really true and is an addition and balances, works with your head calculations. I think this is a fantastic, personally, I think this is a fantastic outcome as a harvest of embracing epic journeying cycles. That I was enabled and empowered to take courageous challenges at every step along the way of my life. And another big harvest of epic journeying cycles is that we get to pick up triggers for old patterns earlier, so we don't land in pools of pain as often or as deep. So, from our first summary, which has appeared in experiences 21 to 29, we had a heavy, arrowed, wriggly line, which was naming how we can be in dialogue with the more than energy and mystery in our life. My opinion is that Thomas Merton summarised that beautifully, the effects of being in dialogue with more than mystery, more than energy and mystery in our lives, when he says, "When we have really met and known our inner world in silence, words do not separate us from the world, nor from others, nor from God, nor from ourselves, because we no longer trust entirely in language to contain reality." And that is what you have been invited and given the opportunity to experience in these videos 1 to 29. We have used metaphor and story and emotional intelligence, wisdom and movement and other ways other than words to rely on, to know what we are invited to do through dialoguing with mystery. Now, Noel Davis has a poem called "Let's Slip on Our Dancing Shoes." For me, this summarises the whole of the experience program named Experience Living Purposefully into Your Very Own Story. Astronomers identify each star by its dance, and scientists have deduced we are made of stardust. So let's not tarry and slip on our dancing shoes. And then Noel gives us this challenge. It's life's invitation. Are we bold enough to say yes? And then he notes about what happens when we do say yes. Seems it takes a lifetime and a lesson or two to join the dancing universe, like losing ourselves, to find ourselves again. And his last line is slipping on our dancing shoes. I am allowing a brief pause for you to let one part of that poem speak to you, and then I'll read it again. So let's slip on our dancing shoes. Astronomers identify each star by its dance, and scientists have deduced we are made of stardust. So let's not tarry and slip on our dancing shoes. It's life's invitation. Are we bold enough to say yes? Seems it takes a lifetime and a lesson or two to join the dancing universe, like losing ourselves, to find ourselves again, slipping on our dancing shoes. And so that concludes videos 1 to 30. And as I thought about the conclusion to this program, I have added a supplementary video, which is a do-it-yourself guide on how to live freely. And so it picks up some of the strategies and adds a couple more about how and when to slip on our dancing shoes, as Noel Davis has invited us to. And so I thank you very much for having followed through the 30 videos in this series, Living Purposefully into Your Very Own Story.